Good morning to you. For Telesur, I'm Regan Devines in Caracas, Venezuela. Thank you so much for joining us on From the South. This morning, our top story takes us to Vietnam. President Nicolas Maduro started his official visit there just hours after having visited China. He met with his Vietnamese counterpart, Truong Tan, and they signed various agreements aimed at strengthening bilateral cooperation. Now, both leaders announced plans to increase bilateral trade to $1 billion. Vietnam has invested close to $2 billion in Venezuela as of April 2015. This makes the Latin American country its top investment destination.
We have discussed about widening our strategic ally in the field of energy. Through that alliance, we will be able to discuss about Vietnam's new oil and petroleum projects in Venezuela. I am very happy that today we have signed a cooperative plan in which Vietnam will help to strengthen Venezuela's agricultural productivity in the next 3 years.
In Colombia, there is a massive campesino mobilization underway. They are protesting against the government of President Juan Manuel Santos. They say that less than 70% of the agreements reached with the government since 2013 have been met. The rallies and protests will be staged through September 5th across the country, especially the capital, Bogota. Leaders of the movement said they feel outraged by the unfulfilled agreements. They say there is restricted democracy. They also accused the government of discriminating against their struggles and achievements. They further denounced political persecution. The FARC negotiating team expressed optimism at the progress of the peace talks in Havana, Cuba. Rebel leaders have proposed the creation of a pact with the Colombian government, in order to find people forcibly disappeared as a result of the more than 5-decade-old civil war. The government has said there are over 50,000 cases of forced disappearances. The leftist FARC guerrilla also said that demining will recommence this week. Rebel negotiator in Havana, Ivan Marquez, praised the progress made in the talks and said a final agreement was closer than ever. And speaking of forced disappearances, we move on now to Mexico, where more than 26,000 people are in that status. NGOs have heavily criticized the government of President Enrique Peña Nieto for failing on his promise to reduce violence and improve human rights. Various human rights organizations denounced that since Peña Nieto took office almost 3 years ago, 81 activists have been forcibly disappeared. During the entire presidency of his predecessor, Felipe Calderón, 51 activists were disappeared. The Guatemalan right-wing presidential candidate Manuel Baldizón called on Congress to strip President Otto Pérez Molina of his immunity to face trial. This comes days after a congressional committee recommended just that. Pérez Molina is facing accusations of allegedly being involved in a corruption scandal that has rocked his administration, prompting several cabinet members and other top officials to resign. In order for his immunity to be removed, 105 of the 108 lower chamber lawmakers have to vote yes. This could happen as early as this week.
During the last few days, we've had a state in crisis, a Guatemala without hope, a government that has fallen into the lowest stages of corruption.
In Brazil, thousands of revelers dressed in colorful attire and partied on the streets of Rio de Janeiro's Madureira district as part of the city's annual Gay Pride celebrations. Crowds of people danced through the streets with rainbow flags, while others were on floats in theatrical carnival costumes. The parade, now in its 19th year, was held under the slogan, "We are a million voices." This year, an objective of the event was a call for the government to approve a law that bans discrimination against lesbians, gays, bisexuals, and transsexuals. And now let's take a look at our World News Roundup.
According to the most recent polls, former Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras's leftist party Syriza will win the September 20th snap elections. But his lead has slowly been giving way to the conservative New Democracy Party, which indicates that Tsipras' gamble in calling early elections could backfire. Many Greeks have criticized him for bowing to pressure by the country's creditors, which forced him to go back on election promises against austerity. But many more feel he had no choice but to accept the reforms imposed by the European Union, the IMF, and the European Central Bank.
He deserves a second chance because they didn't let him govern. Everyone was pressuring him. He was being attacked on all fronts. So he deserves to win an outright majority now. He can do better than the others. We've seen what the other political parties have done for years now. We can't expect any better than Tsipras.
While mainstream media and many Western European governments call refugees migrants in order to deny them of the right by international law to asylum because they are fleeing war, violence, and possibly death, some officials are criticizing those who are rejecting those seeking protection. French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius accused Eastern European states, notably Hungary, of a scandalous policy towards refugees going against the values of the European Union. Spain is another European Union country taking a hard stance against refugees. On average, refugees seeking asylum in the country wait 60 days for a response from the authorities, although many are deported long before. Those refugees who are allowed to stay in the countries are left to fend off for themselves. In many cases, they are not provided with proper work permits. Refugees in Spain say all they want is a chance to rebuild their lives destroyed by war and violence back home.
I prefer to stay here, and I'm using my mind now, so I don't want to lose my future. I want to study, I want to live with my family in freedom. So now I'm thinking about my way. I have my way to study, to get a job, for example, about my future. So it's hurt me.
The Islamic State group kidnapped over 200 people in Raqqa, Iraq over the weekend. The victims were protesting against the extremist group. About 50 children were among those kidnapped. The United Nations had reported that the Islamic State group has executed over 8,000 people. In Syria, in the city of Palmyra, the militants destroyed another temple, the Temple of Bel, a Roman-era structure. It's the second temple targeted by IS this month.
Thanks to our news team in Quito, Ecuador for the World News Brief. Now to sports and culture. Prolific horror filmmaker Wes Craven has passed away at the age of 76. He succumbed to brain cancer on Sunday after a 3-year battle with the disease. Craven hit stardom when he wrote and directed the slasher classic A Nightmare on Elm Street, which made the character Freddy Krueger a pop culture icon. He was also well known for the horror satire film Scream, which he directed. Other popular horror thrillers directed by Craven were The Hills Have Eyes, Red Eye, and The People Under the Stairs. His style of inciting fear in an audience will truly be missed. And in Atlanta, the death of an Atlanta Braves fan has raised new concerns over safety at baseball stadiums. Major League Baseball was already looking at this year's safety after several fans were injured by foul balls and flying bats. Last Saturday, a 60-year-old man plunged headfirst to his death from the upper deck of a baseball stadium in Atlanta in front of a sold-out crowd of 49,000. During the game against the New York Yankees, a doctor tried to revive the man, identified as Gregory Murray, to no avail.
Paramedics came and put him in a neck collar.
For more on these and other stories, please visit our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Regan Devines. Have a safe and productive day.